Hello all. In my earlier tutorial of locators in web application testing, we have learned about Xpath, types of Xpath, and we have learned few of the examples of those Xpath, how to generate those Xpath. Now we will learn about CSS path, how to generate the CSS path. Sometimes in the automation testing, you have to generate the CSS path instead of Xpath. So let's learn how to generate CSS path. To learn about CSS XPath, I have taken the Cura Health application, which is the demo application provided by Katalon Studio. And in this application, I have opened this developer tool. As I explained earlier, you can open the developer tool by using the function F12 key of your keyboard, or you can take it from the menus. Like the XPath, we can generate the CSS path. Sometimes it is the requirement of the automation testing project to generate the CSS path for few of the web elements. So how to generate the CSS path? If you take this inspect element button and hover over any of the web element, you find some of the information given about that web element. The first highlighted details of these web elements can be used for generation of the CSS path. For example, in this username field, the highlighted text is input hash txt dash username dot form dash control. So you can generate the CSS path using this input hash txt username. If I enter the details of the CSS path in this find text box, it will be input hash txt dash username, or you say hyphen username. Now it's finding the username, and this is my CSS path for the username web element. For password web element, I will show you the different way of finding this CSS path. I will take the inspect element button. I will click on the password, and it will highlight the password details in blue in the elements tab in the developer tool. I will right click here and go to copy menu, and in this copy menu I find copy selector. So I will click on copy selector, and if I paste this over here, I find the CSS path for this password web element. Here I can use input tag HTML tag with this CSS path. You can use input, you can skip it as well. So this way you can generate the CSS path for your web element. In this example, we have generated the CSS path using the ID attribute. Now we will learn how to generate the CSS path using the class attribute. Here the class of this password is form hyphen control or dash control. So I will select inspect element, and if I hover over the password field, it shows me the highlighted text input hash txt hyphen password that we have used, and dot form dash control. Form dash control or form hyphen control. What is this? This is the class attribute. So how to use this class attribute? To use this class attribute, I will use the HTML tag, that is input dot and the class value, that is form hyphen control, and it is giving me 4 different elements because form hyphen control, that class value is available for 4 different controls. That's why it's showing me 4 controls, but password is one of them. So we have learned 2 examples of CSS selector or CSS path. One, selecting with ID, and second, selecting with the class attribute. So while selecting the ID attribute, we used the HTML tag, that is input, and then hash and attribute value. And for class, we have used input. Instead of hash, we have used dot and the class attribute value. Now let's learn further. Instead of using this input hash txt hyphen password or input dot form hyphen control, we can also make our CSS path or CSS selector as input in the brackets id equal to txt hyphen password, and it will identify our element. If you want to use multiple attributes, then how will you use it in case of CSS selector? So for that, what I will do, input hash, and I will take this txt password, and in the bracket I will say, for example, if I want to select with name, so name equals to password. This identifies my password web element using CSS path or CSS selector. What we have done, input hash txt password. Txt password is the value of ID and value of name is password. So we have used two different attributes and their values to identify one web element using CSS selector. Now let's learn how to generate the CSS selector for the dynamic attribute values. For that we use prefix or suffix. For example, here I have taken input hash txt password name, and I will use this symbol which is above your number 6 on your laptop. This symbol is called as caret symbol, and we will give the preceding string of name attribute value. Still, it is identifying the web element. So this way you can also create or generate the CSS selector or CSS path for web elements having dynamic attribute values. We can also even remove this txt password, which is our ID, from here, and just we can give input in the bracket name, and the symbolic notation to match the string is equal to and prefix of your name attribute value. Now let's learn how to use the suffix. To use suffix, we will take the same example, input name, and instead of this symbol we will use this symbol, that is dollar, and we will use, instead of prefix, we will use suffix string of that name attribute, and it is able to find the password web element. This way you can generate the CSS selector or CSS path for the attributes having dynamic values. These are the different ways by which you can select the web element using the CSS selector or CSS path. You can generate the CSS path for the dynamic web elements values or attribute values, and you can also generate the CSS path for the normal attributes. This was about the locators of web application. We have learned about Xpath and CSS path generation for automation testing. If you are new to my channel RuTechTalkz and would like to learn automation testing and the management of testing projects, then please click subscribe and bell icon below this video. Please do not forget to like and share. Thank you.